Hello, everyone, and a very warm good evening to each one of you who has joined us today for this yet another Member Spotlight series. So, from boardrooms in Tokyo to transformation mandates in the Middle East, discovering how the globally seasoned CFOs turns the governance, risk, and strategy into the tools for sustainable business leadership. This conversation today under Member Spotlight with Mr. Subra is a gold mine for aspiring directors, finance leaders, and change makers seeking global boardroom impact. At Mentor My Board, which is a pioneering governance tech platform, which is dedicated to build a strong ecosystem of board-ready leaders, independent directors, and promoters, our mission is to empower more than 1 lakh directors with the access to knowledge, mentorship, and curated boardroom opportunities through the subscription-based platform of Mentor My Board. For everyone who is new, you can log into the platform of www.mentormyboard.com to explore the plethora of tools, services, opportunities, training that we bring to you on the platform of Mentor My Board. We have 3,000 plus members on the platform, and Mr. Subra is one of them. So, with this, I would also like to mention a few important skills or a few important milestones that Mr. Subra has achieved. So, one, he is a member of Singapore Institute of Directors and has completed, his listed entity directors program from Singapore. Second, he is recently appointed as an audit and risk committee member at RSVP Singapore, which is a prestigious NGO where President of Singapore is a patron member too. And with this, I shed the spotlight now on you, Mr. Subra, to take us through your diverse career across the diverse markets in the field of finance, and how has this cross-cultural experience shaped your, boardroom and governance understanding and the style of leadership that you currently follow. So, with this, would like to open the forum to you, and we would love to have this conversation with you under the Member Spotlight series.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neha, and thank you for inviting me to this spotlight. I also thank the viewers who are watching this live, as well as who will probably see it later on the recording. Yeah, and I hope it's valuable to everybody. So thank you once again. So, as you rightly said, from a cross-cultural perspective, I've been very fortunate to work in multiple countries. So I worked in India for a little while, starting off with Procter and Gamble, and then I moved to Japan. I lived in Japan for almost 2 years, and then we moved to Singapore in 2000. So we've been here for about 25 years. Uh, as you know, and most of people might know, my friend, that I'm a fluent speaker of Japanese language, and I also run business in Japanese as well.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. And I've been a board member for the US multinational companies, UK multinational companies, subsidiary companies in Asia Pacific region. I've been the financial director and CFO for Asia Pacific region, as well as for large business divisions as well, leading a number of people, as well as I've been sitting on the executive committee for these companies where I work for. I work for Moog, which is a large American company, for almost close to 15 years. I was sitting on the ethics governance board as well, and also the Asia Pacific Executive Committee, on top of being the regional financial director and the CFO also. Interestingly, as I was sitting on the board of the company, I was also on the board of our Indian subsidiaries. So we have had three subsidiaries in India. In Bangalore, one looking after the aircraft business, the other one was on the industrial controls, and third one was the trading as well. On top of being on the board of Singapore company, China company, Australian companies, etc. So it has been an interesting ride for me. In terms of the cross-cultural experiences itself, uh, initially, it was very difficult when I started engaging with people outside of my culture, but very quickly I learned that language is one thing, but more than the language, understanding the people is extremely important. And as the finance head, it's very important to bring in people's mind to understand the business. For example, I think most of the accountants and finance people understand the accounting and reporting, which is very important, bread and butter. but we need to understand beyond that. We need to understand the business drivers, the strategic business, because we are one of the key people executing the business as well. So that was very, very important, and that helped in terms of understanding the cross cultural. So we are able to execute the business much effectively. The second one is, of course, being a board member as well as finance person. The corporate governance and the risk management becomes extremely important. I've also been the chief compliance officer in the company and also been the ethics governance board as well. So managed for a number of years the various compliance and the risk governance also. And the third one is building trust and reputation, which becomes very important, whether you're doing the accurate financial reporting, whether you do the forecasting, whether making sure that nothing goes wrong, so that the other business colleagues and the leaders are able to sleep in peace and they're able to focus on the core business. So that's kind of roughly what I would summarize as so far my journey has been. And recently, as you rightly said, I have been appointed as the Audit and Risk Committee member at the RSVP Singapore, which I'm looking forward to serving them. It's a very good institution because it's a social and non-profit organization with about 5,500 members, and RSVP Singapore serves about more than 100,000 or 1 lakh people across Singapore, helping them to work as volunteers, helping hospitals, teaching young children, and giving food in a number of areas. So it's a pretty significant organization where the president of Singapore is also a patron there. So I'm looking forward to serving on the board of that company as well.
That is so amazing. And does this organization, the NGO that you are currently contributing to, also kind of being handhold by the government of Singapore also, or
Yeah. The organization also gets grants from government also on top of the other fundraising activity from different patrons who are there all over Singapore who also give. So it becomes even more responsible for as an audit and risk committee member to make sure that the compliance is there and the rules of the organization is followed or what the government specified rules are followed. So it becomes extremely important. So the process have to be right, the training has to be right, a number of things have to be right there also.
wonderful. I completely understand what you're saying, and it is so mandatory. And as we grow in leadership roles, it is much more into team building and leadership building than into your particular domain of knowledge or experience. So everything drills down to, after all, the team management aspect and the leadership aspect that we follow once we are up there in leadership roles.
Yes, thank you.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, you wanted to add something?
no, I just want to say that, as you rightly mentioned, I'm also a member of Singapore Institute of Directors, and I've also completed the Listed Entity Directors program, which becomes very important and gives the credibility for being a board member in many of these companies.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, just before we proceed here, Subraji, everyone who has joined us online, maybe on YouTube or on the LinkedIn handles or from Facebook handles, please feel free to post some questions if in case you would want to, understand more from Subra about his journey. And we would be happy to take those questions up during our discussion if in case time permits, or else we would be happy to kind of answer you post the session as well. So please use the chat box and feel free to post your questions here. The next one that is coming up to you is, I would love to know about the qualities that you believe every CFO must bring to the boardroom today. It is so essential that CFOs in generation today and the next gen that is coming in have those right qualities. So, any light that you want to throw on that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as probably the CFO or the financial director that I've been, I think the first and foremost, as I said, is understanding the key drivers of business. Because if you don't understand the business, then you are not able to see what the numbers or what everything else means in business. So I think it's very important for anybody who wants to come to the board or who wants to operate as a CFO to understand the key drivers of business, which means strategic business direction. What's the purpose of business? What exactly are we trying to do? And we call in one of those very classic way, where do we play and how do we play? That becomes extremely important. I think so that's the first and foremost part, I would say so. The second one would be the building the trust with the management, with the board members, and with the colleagues also. And how do you get those trust? And so a couple of things that comes to mind is with what we call as on time, 100% on time, accurate in terms of your reporting, in terms of your forecasting. Because I think I've seen in organizations where, although it's very basics, if you say forecast, I'm going to 100 rupees or $100, and then you see this going all over the place, yo-yo, or even in terms of the business reporting, it goes all over the place. It means that something is wrong, something's not right. So the CFO has to understand what's the reason behind, and if there is a process issue, system issue, or is there a systemic issue, for example, and you should be able to explain to somebody, like, when you're making your presentation on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, weekly basis. I don't know how it works in each of the company, but somebody should be able to say so that collectively the executive team can make right decisions so that we're able to build the business. So the key part is helping the business to grow and make money is one of the most important thing, and that's achieved by a number of areas, as I said. And the third one is also the governance and the risk management and controls becomes extremely important, because why do we need that? To make sure that you follow the rules of the country or the place properly, make sure that you have a right process in place which effectively drives the business and gets maximum efficiency out of the business, because resources are limited. So how do you make use of the resources? So you need to have a good corporate governance and good controls to make sure they are applied in the right places, and you get maximized shareholders return. So that becomes important. So these are the three kind of broad things that comes to mind, which to repeat again is that the corporate governance and the risk management, which I said, building trust is going to be extremely important. The third one is understanding the key drivers of business and where is the money coming from and how can you help to improve that.
Wonderful. I think you kind of elaborated and then even summarized it for the ease of everyone to understand more in detail about how is it that they can be more effective as CFOs, and they can drive the
Yeah.
business to the next level. So just when you were mentioning about these aspects in business, right? Trust, empathy, and even to certain extent, understanding the workforce at large is very important for a CFO. I mean, his team,
Yes.
driving his team to the right way. So, how do you consider these aspects of a CFO role, in the overall business strategy that we see?
Yeah. So I would use just one word and then explain. That's called as conformance versus performance, conformity versus performance. So what it means is that as a key management player, whether it's board, CFO, whatever it is, conformance becomes very important because you want to make sure that you're following the policies, the rules, whatever are set by the company, whether it's HR department or by finance or by operations, whatever it is. But sometimes those conformance will come in conflict with performance because the business people will want to do things which are not necessarily in line with this. So the CFO has to strike the right balance to make sure that something doesn't go wrong. And yet, how do you make sure you get the performance also done? To give an example, that I will talk about Japan. So in Japan, one of the payment terms is called as promissory note or tegata, which is very trustworthy. That brings me back to the culture. Unlike in other countries, like when you give a check and the check can bounce, in Japan, a check cannot bounce. If a check bounces 2 times, the company is declared bankrupt, for example. You
Oh,
know, yeah. So therefore, people are very careful, and there is a long-dated check they can give. They can say, "I pay after 4 months" or something like this. So if a business says that I will buy product from you, but if you give me a 4 months or 5 months later payment terms, and the company says that no, as per the conformance, I cannot do that, but performance requires that. I step in and I say, okay, fine. Can you give me a promissory note or a check, which is post-dated one, that at least gives me a guarantee that after that time the money is going to be recovered? So we have to strike some kind of a balance which is there. Similarly, on inventory management becomes extremely important because somebody says you buy a product to sell or make a product to sell, but I don't have the orders on the backside.
correct.
So we want to make sure that you're not building up inventory unnecessarily, but on the other hand, you have sufficient stocks to be able to meet the market requirement as well. So how do you, so you need to have a proper data, which is your S&P, S&OP process or whatever operations process to make sure that you're understanding or reading the market correctly and with some bit of buffer, of course, to make sure that, it doesn't go overboard. So I would say if that properly plays out in a period of time, you will understand where the balance is and the trust gets built up. And of course, there's one very important thing in a trust that we say: do what you say what you do. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think the conformance versus the performance strategy that you mentioned is something that is a very key aspect to the role of a CFO, because that is where the entire strategy, the entire thought process changes behind whatever you decide. So
Yes.
I completely agree and understand what you're saying. With high stakes M&A deals that we do, right, and with the conformance and performance strategy that you just mentioned, so how is it that you navigate those risks, and what is the integrations that are possible under these high stake M&A deals?
Yes, that's a very interesting question because I've been involved in several merger acquisitions during my career, and it's always a conflict because some of the business leaders would want to acquire companies sometimes just for the sake of acquiring or getting a badge saying that I did this. But as you might know, 70 to 80% of the acquisition does not succeed because of execution problems, actually. Yeah. And so second, so mainly you need to, and it's very important to understand why are we buying or selling a company? Because what's the purpose? What are we trying to do here? So for example, they could be doing it because of market share, because I think by buying a company, you're going to expand the market, or you're getting some sort of a technology that is not there in our company and somebody else has got it, you're getting it. We already have the market. If I get those technology, we'll be able to do that. Or you're getting some talent or people. There could be multiple reasons why we do that.
Right.
I'll talk about a specific example of my time, which was in Japan. We acquired a pretty large company, and I'll say it's a part of the Mitsubishi Group, actually, which is one of the very large organizations because they had one of the subsidiary companies which they wanted to let go, and our company bought that company. Now, mistakes do happen. So when due diligence time, our company had engaged with Price Waterhouse, one of the big four firms, to DD. In spite of that, they did not pick up something. So the report said that everything looks good on their finances
Okay.
and everything is okay. It's good to go. Of course, with all the conditions, etc., that they will give the big disclaimer saying that don't blame me if something goes wrong and stuff like that. We all know that, yeah.
Right.
And I had joined new at that point of time, the company. And when I went in, I was the CFO or finance director, and they called us at day one when you go there. Day one, you go there. I want to make sure that all the assets which is mentioned in the balance sheet are actually available there. So, for example, machineries are there, computers are there, cash is there, bank balance are there. There was one thing which I spoke earlier, which is called as Tegata, the promissory notes. So in the balance sheet, it said several $1 million of promissory note. I mean, checks are there. It becomes an asset typically in the balance sheet. They're saying that we are buying those because we'll get money of that particular asset. I go there and I ask the previous financial guy there. I said, I want to take account of those. Those days I was also much younger. So I said, I want to take a look at that. And we found that, for example, if the balance sheet said it was 500, there was only 200 there,
Oh,
and the 300 is missing. So I said, it doesn't tie up. It's a very simple thing, not rocket science. It doesn't tie up. And he said, no, no, it must be there. So I said, it's not tying up. He starts looking through the drawers. He started doing all this sort of thing, and then he couldn't find it. And finally, Mitsubishi Group had to accept that it's lost, and therefore we were able to recover back several millions of dollars because of a basic check that you have to do. Like I mentioned, that some of those corporate governance internal controls are there. Later on, we found out that the previous management had done some funny things and it was missing. And very unfortunately, in that event, the financial guy in that company committed suicide.
oh,
Yeah, because in Japan, the pride and the ego is very big. Culture is so much that if he loses his face, he will not be able to stand either in the company or in the community. Nobody said. So it was a very sad story for us. In my day experience, when I think of one of the things that comes to mind is that be very careful, both in terms of the purpose as to why we are buying a company, what's the driver, do a proper evaluation before you actually go and buy to make sure that you don't get into trouble. Your due diligence may not discover everything, but make sure you have reps and warranties that we call as, which enables you to go back and claim back money from the seller if you find something within whatever months of time. In this case, day one, I found out and immediately we enforced the reps and warranties and we were able to get back a large amount of money.
Oh, that is nice. And while you were mentioning, you mentioned a very important point about culture. Because while you're doing these kind of transactions, not only the financial aspect is important, but the culture aspect of the companies that are being maybe merged, taken over, are equally important to gel with each other. And
True.
that is what I understand you mentioned about, the cultural aspect as well.
Yes. Talking about culture, I'll just take one step also further. For example, I think we need to understand very clearly. For example, in Japan, on time is very important.
Very.
On time means on time.
Yeah.
Whereas you take India or Indonesia, etc., like say Chaltai, like kind of a thing.
Yeah.
We'll come after. We say 3:30. It means 3:30. It doesn't mean 3:45 or
Right.
4. So that applies to everything. Whether you're replying to somebody, you're responding on an email, you're making a report, whatever we are doing, the on time is extremely important. Second one is quality and productivity. It's very important. uh, there's no scope for any kind of small little things are okay and all. No, I think if the risk tolerance is 0.0001%, it will be 0.0001%. It cannot be 0.00011. No, it doesn't apply like that. So some of those things one has to understand as you deal with different cultures where but I'm not saying one is right, one is wrong, etc. Just that understanding that helps to drive the business better when you talk to people and you then start to plan your activities accordingly.
True, and becomes even the more important when it is cross-border culture, because then you have to kind of take into consideration a lot more things, as you rightly mentioned. That
Yes.
smallest of the things, from time to the way you communicate, to the way your company is kind of giving their data or receiving it, or maybe any information. So yes, I agree to the point that you're making here.
Yes.
And as a role of a CFO in building the culture of accountability, building the culture of integrity in that company, so what are your kind of suggestions, or what are your kind of insights that you would want to share with the new age directors or the independent directors coming on board of some company, that how is it that if you are a CFO in a large corporate or if a large company, what is it that it takes to build a culture of accountability and integrity in that company for you?
Yes. So again, I think two main things that comes to mind, maybe more than two, but I'll see is one is that of understanding the governance, the risk management, and the control aspects. Because as a finance person, the board would expect you to question, challenge, and also give suggestions for any of the issues that might be there. To give an example, in organization that I work for, where we have seen some challenges, for example, IT systems are not good, or there is a risk of cyber security will be there, etc. So some would be there. So, or for example, bank payments is very as simple as that. There is no dual signatory, a single guy is signing and letting the money go. So because when you talk of global organizations, there are many different countries, so different places. Because we have acquired a company and the previous management might be having something which is not as effective. So there can be various aspects to be there. So you want to make sure that you implement what's called as like we used to do minimum control standards or top 10 controls, make sure basics are there, like signatories, inventory management, your receivables collection, all this sort of thing, which most of the people would know. So people know it, but you want to make sure that they are implemented as well. That's the first part. The second one is, of course, understanding the drivers of business, because if you don't understand the business, you will not be able to kind of solve the problem as well. So, what's the purpose of the business? What business are we in, and where's the money coming from? And third one is that I think I want to make sure there's a proper training on compliance to all the people in the company. It's not just finance, HR, sales, purchase, whatever departments are there. It's very important that people are properly trained on whatever the company policies might be there, and it's regularly done, so that all are aligned. So when you talk of a culture, you want to make sure that all are on the same page. So and most of the people will come along. That's what I've seen. And if anybody wants to become a board member, first of all, make sure you have some experience on these areas that I talked about, because anybody coming in fresh might struggle. If not, then at least make sure that you go through these learnings, because that's extremely important.
Wonderful, wonderful. So while you were explaining, IT or maybe cyber security as an aspect to the financial role is also something that is closely looked at in the boardrooms nowadays. So
Yes.
how is it that you feel that the new age directors coming on boards should be aware about those cyber security aspects or the IT aspects which are related to finance,
Yeah.
and how is it that they take it up?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, getting more and more important these days. As for example, one of the data that I was reading recently said that more than 80% of the companies have been attacked by ransomware, for example. So we want to make sure that you have either a prevention or a detection properly. So, for example, I think when you have a prevention, you want to make sure that the bad forces are not able to enter the company and steal the data, or jam the system. But detection will be to make sure that you have a robust system of recovery and backup, which is very effective as well, so that there is no business disruption takes place. So those all become extremely important, because finance has got massive amount of data. Every data that you can imagine is sitting in finance, and if anything goes out, because, and also these days people are working online all over the place. People are accessing the system to place orders, or or HR guys are doing, or employees are accessing their system. Everywhere there's so much of access going on, the IT control become extra. So as a board member, I would want to make sure that our company has got effective tools and process by which any damage, any disruption, first of all, doesn't happen at all. And if it happens, there's a quick backup, so that we are not running into any risk of business disruption. That's one of the big thing on risk management also. So when you look at risk management, there are different aspects that you think of. To put it very simply, if I'm running a factory, one of the big risks is that what if a fire catches in my factory? A big risk.
Very true.
I think more risk is IT systems and data, loss of data, business disruption. So just to give that example.
Right, right. So while we were speaking about the big corporates, I would also like to draw attention towards maybe the startups or the SME MSME space. Right now, in this space, basically the transformation projects like the ERP implementation, like the shared services which are implemented. So how is it that you think that these activities can be done smoothly without disrupting the business continuity, because the scale at which it is done is quite less, or maybe the employees are not even trained on those systems prior. So how is it that you feel it can be done easily? So any light that you can throw upon that?
Yes. Yeah. So let me take the topic of the shared service that you just mentioned about. It's very, very important, small company or a bigger company, to understand. First of all, always I say the purpose. What are we trying to do here? And that is, for example, we are either trying to save the cost, improve the efficiency, focus on the business, make it more effective. Can be a number of those elements will be there.
Right.
The second is a proper evaluation has to be done, because when you're getting to shared service, you want to see you're getting the desired benefits. Otherwise, you do everything, and in the end, you realize that we are not getting the desired benefit. People are leaving the company and going because it becomes too much of a hardship, and it's a double work and things like that becomes very,
Right.
very, very important as well. So third one is that you want to explain to the team properly who is going to be involved, as to what are we trying to do, and if for example there is going to be redundancy of some staff, etc., you should be very open and honest, and also make sure there's an incentive for the person, or it's a transfer to another department by which the person doesn't lose the job, etc. So that becomes also extremely important. So somebody they cooperate properly in this whole shared service exercise. If it's a very, very small company, some of these problems may not be there at all because you straight away get into shared service kind of a scenario. But I would say shared service, the topic itself comes when it's a slightly matured company and not an absolute new company in that sense. But very important is communication properly, training properly, business evaluation and business case to understand that what's the disadvantage. And also, many times, often we have an outsourced partner, etc. You want to be very sure they're reliable ones, because once you give some contract to a third party, and what if something goes wrong with them? Like, then our business will get a business disruption. So we don't want to get that.
Perfect, perfect. My last question to you for today, maybe as our valued elite member of Mentor My Board community, how is it that you wish to contribute to engage with the platform, and what has been the impact that has had on your leadership journey? I mean, this platform has had on your leadership journey.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. So I've attended some of the talks by the Mentor My Board, and they have been very valuable for me. And during the talks, I've also been able to add value to the speaker as well, either by asking the right questions or by guiding when there was some help needed. So I'll be very happy to be a mentor or a guide to other aspiring directors in Mentor My Board as well as time goes along, on particularly the topic where I would be able to contribute, whether it's on governance, risk management, or strategic business direction, whichever makes best sense. I would be very happy to contribute. And I think you guys are doing a great job. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you so much. And it was a lovely conversation with you. Simply enjoyed, learned so many things. Definitely the conformance versus performance thing that you mentioned was something that I am taking away from the session. And look forward to hearing a lot of comments in the chat box while, people view this session. Thank you so much for joining in, Mr. Chopra, and have a great time.
Thank you very much. You too have a good day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.